When the Vietnamese invaded to seize control of the country, the end of Pol Pot's rule did not bring an end to the suffering in Cambodia.
And now, after the invasion of my country by the Vietnamese, our people becomes slaves of Moscow and of Hanoi. Now we have to face Vietnamese imperialism and colonialism. So I have to fight. How can you persuade the Vietnamese and the Soviet to let us be independent again? I have no prejudice. I love too much my country to be the man of factions, but I want to be the man of national unity, national reconciliation.
For generations, Cambodia was a backwater. Despite the conflicts all round, this was not a land that was ripe for revolution. Down through the centuries, the Khmer people, Cambodians, had never had a problem of overpopulation or a shortage of land for growing rice. Peasant farmers were poor, but nearly all worked in family groups on land of their own. The idea of communes or collective farms was hardly attractive. On the surface, life was absurdly innocent.
When we started as a nation more than 1,000 years ago, we had what Western scholars used to call God kings, because the kings then were gods. They represented everything, including the gods. So everything was centered on the king. And I think that it is one of the reasons why we were so strong, because the people united all around the king. You know, even the intellectuals, they were very obedient to the king. So the king could then lead the people on the way towards more and more strength, and we became an empire. We got from India a heavy and beneficial influence. For instance, Angkor Wat, the most famous temple in Cambodia, was inspired by the Indian culture and architecture and the prayers of the priests and so on. The religions, Brahmanism, Buddhism, were all from India. It is very fascinating because there was a Hindu Khmer marriage without any military means, conquest and so on. Even our monarchy was half Indian and half Khmer.
Fortune and patronage radiated from the king down through his courts to peasants in the countryside. Cambodia's strength as an empire was based on rice. The great god kings had power to mobilize labor. Complex irrigation works were built. Up to 3 crops of rice a year were harvested. It was the divine role of kings to fertilize the fields, harmonize the seasons. But it also followed that times of drought, political upheaval, or defeats in battle were signs that a king's divine energy had drained away. Then loyalties broke down. Even at the height of its glory, Cambodia's fortunes oscillated according to the personal charisma of each of the Angkor kings. By the 15th century, the empire had collapsed. The royal courts and rituals survived, but the potency of the god kings had clearly faded. A more personal form of Buddhist faith took root in Cambodia.
Before we were Brahmanist, Buddhist, but not Hinayana. Hinayana Buddhism preaches, tolerance, non-violence, and the renunciation to strength, to force. So we became weak.
In popular songs and drama, the villains who threatened Cambodia were always its neighbours, the Thais or the Vietnamese. The art of survival was to play off one against the other. This play tells the story of one Cambodian king who married a Vietnamese princess. It was a marriage of convenience to seal an alliance with the Vietnamese. But according to the play, the king was outwitted by his Vietnamese wife. She insisted on taking Cambodian land to form what is now the south of Vietnam. Cambodia's kings were no longer warriors. They learned to live by compromise and appeasement. It would be the Vietnamese who posed the ultimate threat to Cambodia. Originally from China, the Vietnamese had pushed southwards, but their expansion to the west was checked by mountain ranges. So this natural barrier came to separate the two different cultures of Indochina. The Vietnamese were populous, imbued with Chinese realism. By contrast, the Thais, the Lao and Cambodians clung to their Indian beliefs and culture. They were less worldly and worked their land at a gentler pace. As Vietnamese numbers increased, they needed more land. Cambodians feared their ambitions.
There was and there is still racial antagonism between the Vietnamese and the Cambodians. The main reason why we cannot understand each other or like each other is simply of a military nature. The Vietnamese, they are very expansionist, militarist. They are conquerors, conquérants in French. So we, the Cambodian, we are pacifist. We like peace. So when we see people so bellicose, warmongers, really we feel very uncomfortable vis-à-vis such a people.